My guest is Blake Lawrence. He is the co-founder and CEO of Opendorse. You can find them online at opendorse.com. Over 50,000 athletes at every level of sport utilize Opendorse's platform to monetize their name, image, and likeness. Very happy to be joined by Blake Lawrence, who's a good friend. So happy for your success, Blake. You were a prophet. You saw this all coming. How's it going?
I don't know if I'm deserving of that praise, Brian. I would say that it's going well at Opendorse. Being a decade into building the company, really focused on helping athletes make the most of whatever window of opportunity they have. Using technology to help them make the most of that, and seeing this NIL movement in the college space. The student athlete today has more options to monetize their name, image, likeness than ever before. Before that was zero options. So now it's just trying to keep pace, right? Right now, there's 1,500 student athletes a week are signing up for Opendorse. They're coming to use our technology to understand, build, and monetize their brand. So we are growing quickly. Our team is keeping pace and ensuring that we stay in front of what is to be a $1 billion a year industry.
Before we get into the specifics of NIL and that whole landscape, let's start with your founder story. So you played college football at Nebraska. You were a student athlete. Take us from there into how you developed the idea for Opendorse.
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, I'll take you back to April 2009. I am a junior starting linebacker at Nebraska. It's spring practice, and I just suffered my third concussion in a year. I was forgetting where I was, my name, the plays. And at that moment, I thought to myself, I may not be a football player forever, right? And you think about the athlete's journey, and you work with many athletes, many folks in sports. There is that realization and kind of that moment where they realize, oh, this doesn't last forever. So at that time, I went to this website, twitter.com. It was, again, 2009, early days. And I signed up for an account. And my goal there was to, by the time fall camp started, to have 1,000 followers. Because if I were to step away from the game, maybe I could use sports to build an audience that would last a lifetime. 6 months later, I suffered my fourth concussion in a little over a year. And I was done. I hung up the cleats. I was done in a day. And from that moment to this moment, I've dedicated my whole professional career to helping athletes understand that this doesn't last forever, and taking my personal journey experience and building that audience that is still with me today from my time in Nebraska, and sharing that with those athletes that put their trust in Opendorse. So a couple of years after I was done playing football at Nebraska, I started a marketing agency helping athletes repeat that 0 to 1,000 journey in terms of an online audience. And one of my best friends got drafted to the NFL, and he needed help with not just building his audience, but monetizing it. And realizing that his agent and managers and marketing reps were using spreadsheets and Post-it notes and fax machines, I thought there might be a better way. I think that today's athletes will use technology and rely on apps just as much as they rely on agents in terms of monetizing their NIL. So we started Opendorse to help really one athlete. And now, a decade later, and 60,000 plus athletes around the world use our software every day to build, right, that journey from 0 to 1,000 and their audience, and then also monetize it zero to $1,000 in a bank account. So it's part of what we do for athletes around the world, and knowing that if I could have every athlete that puts their trust in Opendorse kind of have a similar experience I did, building my own presence and staying connected to that audience, then we're doing good for the sports industry and good for the athletes.
Time Magazine wrote about Opendorse recently, I saw. Congratulations on that. But I like how they described Opendorse. They said Opendorse is essentially to athletes what Lyft or Uber are to drivers, or what Airbnb is to people who are looking for a place to stay when they're traveling. You're a one-stop shop for athletes at every level. They can come to you, they can monetize, they can, work with their content. There's a lot of things for these college athletes to have to understand about this landscape. And I think it's great that Opendorse has become that resource for the athletes.
Yeah, certainly. I think there's I do like that analogy, because if you imagine there was a time when you couldn't just go online and book a stay at a stranger's home, right?
Right.
Somebody
Yeah.
had to build the infrastructure of the industry. And if you go and read Airbnb's journey, it was not an overnight success. I mean, this is something that they had to push and push and push, because it's an abnormal act, right? To consider staying on somebody's couch for a couple $100 a night. Somebody's got to make that possible. And I would say that our journey at Opendorse hasn't been overnight success as well. I mean, talk about a decade of doing this, Brian. We met 6-7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying, this is a big vision. This is what we want to do. You saw it, you see it. Now the market is catching up. But the concept of being able to go to opendorse.com, create an account, and search through 60,000 athletes and directly pitch. Like if you want to send an offer to Patrick Mahomes or Spencer Rattler, you can go for free, sign up and send an endorsement deal or a fan request directly to your favorite athletes. And that concept is still new, but it's becoming more and more of an established practice, and especially in the student athlete space, because the pro market and college market are quite different in terms of adoption of technology, the presence of agents. So we feel like we have a powerful role to play, and still a lot of education to do in the market. But yeah, that comparison is great, to understand that this is a technology that helps athletes connect with those people that want to support them and do things to support those fans or brands in exchange.
The market went from, several thousand pro athletes to now that you've got the college athletes in, you've got a few 100,000 more athletes that have joined the market. We're about 3 months in since NIL officially launched. What are you observing so far? Is it going as you thought it would go? Like, what are your observations 3 months in?
I would say that the appetite for brands and fans to directly support student athletes is bigger than we thought, right? That there's interest. I mean, there was a lot of buzz leading up to NIL, but to actually see the market turn on and see the things that are happening, we're surprised and delighted with the quality of activities that are going on, the quantity of activities, and it's still very early. Most national advertisers, we're still waiting to see what the rules are going to be around name, image, and likeness, what the NCAA would allow, what states would allow, what the federal legislation would allow, before they would make movements. So there's some early adopters like Degree or GoPuff or Velveeta just did a great activation this week I want to talk about. And these big brands moving fast, but then there's still local businesses that are trying to figure out like where they can activate. Fans are trying to figure out like, how do I directly support these players now? So there's some innovation, like some things that you couldn't have predicted, and then those things that are happening sooner, in terms of some of these national advertisers, but there's gonna be more and more coming. So the balance between male and female athletes is at the national level, Brian. Like that's something like going into NIL, it's about the conversation or debate was around equity, right? Mm-hmm. Will male student athletes, female student athletes earn the same? And looking at the data, 7 of the top 10 most valuable, most marketable student athletes in the country are female student athletes. They're women's basketball players, women's gymnasts, women's volleyball players. And that bodes well for bona fide NIL activities. Female student athletes are winning the day. But there's also this other type of NIL activity where supportive sponsors or donors are picking their favorite school, picking their favorite sport at that school, and saying, I want to give everyone on this team money. And they're using NIL as a way to do that. And so that's something that you probably didn't predict to tip the balance in favor of men's basketball and football away from the true NIL power of women's student athletes. But the market is young, it's early, but some of the trends are pointing towards bona fide NIL activities being a true equal playing field and female student athletes winning that day. Some of the tilt goes towards men's basketball and football due to some of these other types of NIL activities.
I was on your Twitter feed at Opendorse, and the top 3 activities for NIL compensations have been: number 1, posting content; number 2, licensing rights; number 3, signing something. So autographs, memorabilia. Again, you've always preached posting your content, doing it regularly, growing that audience, that's going to make you more marketable. I would say that, you just gave the stat of 7 of the top 10 athletes doing NIL deals right now are women. I would say they've probably got good social media followings. I don't have that in front of me, but that's going to be my guess, is they've got good social media followings, because frankly, they don't have the media coverage the men have. So the way for them to even that field is to have a great social media following. Would I be correct?
Oh, certainly. I think the race to the first NIL millionaire, or let's just call them millionaires. Try that
I
one
love
on
it.
millionaires.
Millionaires. Yeah.
You heard it here first. Millionaires would be those student athletes that have a solid online social media presence. I mean, again, bona fide NIL activities. Bryce Young is incredibly marketable because he's a quarterback at Alabama, right? But outside of that, he is not personally building his own brand. He's not investing the same as Livy Dunn, the women's gymnast at LSU, who is on her way to being a millionaire. And the Hannah and Haley Cavender, the basketball twins at Fresno State, who have 3 million TikTok followers, they're on their way to being millionaires because they've got a presence, an audience that's going to last them a lifetime. Like these athletes, if they go back to my journey, if an athlete says, if I stop playing my sport today, would they still pay me? Okay. And if the answer is no, then they've got a journey in front of them. They have to build a reason for that audience and those brands and those fans to still want to support them when the game is gone. And that's been a major factor in Opendorse from the very beginning. You talk about athletes can use Opendorse to make money, but we can also, a major factor of getting there is they have to have value in the first place. And so a lot of our products are used to help athletes build an online presence that gets them more marketable, builds an audience that when the playing days are done, they still got value. And yeah, NIL is going to speed up a lot of athlete marketing initiatives. It's going to create an entirely new industry in terms of sports PR, and shifting from helping 23-year-old rookies to 18-year-old freshmen. And I think that's going to be an exciting time for the type of guidance that student athletes will now need the first day they step on campus because of NIL opportunities.
I know you've talked about slow your scroll. If you're on, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, what is the content that is going to slow your scroll? You're working with these athletes to build their social media following. What is that recipe? What are a couple of tips that if you're a student athlete, you're listening to this, you're a coach, you're a parent of a student athlete, and you're like, I want to build that following. Like you said, you were trying to get to 1,000 followers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you build that following? What creates followers and engagement?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm going to take you inside some of these education sessions that we do, Ryan. So I was at a Big Ten school just a few weeks ago, and standing in front of an auditorium, you look up and there's 100 plus football players in this auditorium. And we're talking about brand building. Like, what is a brand? And social media is the resume for today's athletes in NIL, and that's both in college and pro. I mean, any brand or fan that's going to make a decision, do I want to pay this athlete? Do I want to support this athlete? They're going to make that decision within 5 seconds of landing on their social profiles, right? So we kind of guide them towards that understanding. This is where decisions are made. So you have to understand, what are you putting out there? So I ask this question as you talk about content. And, I call it out an athlete. I say, hey, where's your roommate? And they'll point over and say, hey, that's my roommate over there. So, okay, if I go to his Instagram feed, what am I going to see? And he goes, football. I go, anything else? No, just football. And I go to him, hey, what over here? He goes, oh, you're going to see football. I said, okay, what else am I going to see? And they keep saying football. I said, hey, everyone in this room, just real quick, you're all going to talk about football. Okay. What else? Right? It's the other things that's going to make you stand out, because when you're scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through Twitter, that old scroll, tap, tap melody, we all know it. It's that face, it's that profile picture that gets you to slow the scroll. And it's that content that keeps you there. So that content, if it's football, it's going to capture some sort of attention. But the next time they see that profile and it's family, or it's faith, it's fitness, it's food, it's whatever, photography, then that's going to get that person to say, oh, I didn't know that my favorite quarterback is also a foodie, right? I didn't know that my favorite quarterback also collects shoes. So now you can use sports to capture attention, to slow the scroll, and use content to keep that attention, beyond your playing days. That's what we advise. So it's about balancing out, you're going to capture attention with sports, but give them another reason to stay with you.
I think that's great advice. I'm in locker rooms all the time too. And one of the things I talk to the pro athletes about is people want to know you as a human being. They want to know who's under the helmet, who's under the baseball cap, who's running up and down the basketball court. They want to know a little bit about what makes you tick. And that's how they connect to you on a human level. So, I think that's great advice. And I do think the most successful athletes out there are showing their human side. It's not just about, here's a highlight from my game, last Saturday or tonight or whatever it is. People can see that on TV, or they can see it in the media. They want that behind the scenes. Yep. And, they want to know your family. They want to know your dog. They want to know your parents. That's all kind of stuff that gets people's attention.
Yeah. And I think that there's certain times, and especially in certain sports, athletes wait for somebody to give them permission to go beyond an athlete. And I think that our culture is doing a better job of advising athletes to think beyond, like, you are more than an athlete. Like, that movement does matter, because again, you've been in locker rooms, the coaching mentality, sports, and everyone that's listening is, of course, knows sports. And there's that certain coach that's going to say, hey, put that away. This is like, focus here. So they're trying to turn off the other side of an athlete to get the best out of them on the field. What they're doing is, with an empty feed, they're not helping their athletes, move beyond sports. So there's always that balance. And I think that name, image, and likeness rights and is creating a challenge for coaches that want their athletes to succeed with NIL, because it helps from a recruiting advantage. But in order for them to succeed in NIL, like, they have to put in the work. So yeah, new challenges, but beyond your time as an athlete, use sports to slow the scroll, and use great content to capture attention and build an audience that lasts well beyond your time on the field.
I just read a story about Penny Hardaway, the head basketball coach at University of Memphis. They had the #1 recruiting class in the country, which, you would think it would be Duke or North Carolina or, Gonzaga, someone like that. But it was Memphis. And part of their pitch to the athletes is, we have a community starving to do NIL deals with our student athletes. They're passionate about University of Memphis and basketball. I think that's a clever way. If you're a smaller school, or you're not the big Duke or North Carolina, if you want to recruit, use NIL to your advantage. Do you agree?
I do. This is the recruiting battle of the next decade and beyond, is name, image, and likeness compensation for student athletes on a campus. Name, image, likeness preparation is actually where it starts with the school. Compensation's got to come from outside the school. And I can tell you, Brian, just work in this space. Now, Opendorse, we built our technology for athletes. Our partners are this schools, conferences, teams, leagues, athletic departments, all that. They use our software. And there are anxious donors in certain markets seeing that, BYU, and there's this deal for every men's football player. Now there's a deal for every women's basketball player. At Miami, there's something for every football player. Georgia Tech did a deal with, TiVo, does a deal for every football player on campus. Memphis has, very good support for the men's basketball program. I mean, these things are popping up, and people are raising their hands like, how do I get involved? How do I do this? Because it's now a recruiting advantage. I mean, Penny Hardaway is himself an NIL guru, right? I want to do one quick tangent on this. Penny Hardaway, his shoes, when I was a kid, my most prized possession. Okay,
like, and Lil Penny.
And Lil Penny, and I can tell you that Nike, just as much as Penny made Nike better, Nike made Penny better. And I think that's a really good balance of an NIL deal and relationship, because I can tell you, I don't recall many highlights of Penny Hardaway's career. I don't know that, but I know what his shoes look like, and Memphis is a partner of ours, and it's been rewarding to be in that world with somebody that I grew up idolizing simply because of his name, image, and likeness, not because of his on-court success. So that's my little tangent with him. It's very interesting. But NIL compensation and NIL preparation, those two things are going to matter a great deal in recruiting. Certain schools have a head start, but it's the schools themselves aren't the ones doing it. It's got to be the significant sponsor or donor group. that is being creative and understands the rules. Right now, everyone's getting set up, and soon it's just going to be table stakes.
A few minutes ago, you mentioned, I think it was Velveeta.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really interested in getting your thoughts on a few of the activations that have been done thus far that you think, wow, that really resonated. That was a nice job.
Yeah, certainly. So I want to I'll start with Velveeta. Velveeta yesterday introduced the queso contract. They're doing a deal with Cade York. He's an All-American kicker for LSU. Okay. And Velveeta, I think, is an official sponsor of the SEC. They don't have LSU rights, but so they just went straight to Cade. And when Cade York, the kicker for LSU, lines up for a 50-yard plus field goal, any person who signed up to get free cheese from Velveeta, if he makes it, they get free cheese sent straight to their doorstep, right? It is a real wild thing. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it combines a lot of different factors here, but that's a unique activation, right? That's one athlete, one big brand, and a really creative way to get fans involved. There will be people cheering for the kicker at LSU simply because they can get free cheese if he makes the field goal.
Right.
And the celebration yesterday was fantastic. I mean, we talk about locker room balance and equity in the locker room. Every player at LSU was quote tweeting, retweeting it, and hyping up Cade as in like, hey, my guy's getting the cheese. Literally, he's getting cheese from Velveeta. So that's a great activation. Then GoPuff is a partner. They do food delivery, snack delivery app. They're big on college campuses. They're using Opendorse to literally offer an NIL deal to every student athlete in the country. Right? I mean, they're in the tens of thousands of student athletes that have been offered an NIL deal from GoPuff, and that's pretty impressive. And then you see Degree. Degree is building a breaking limits team where they have both regional diversity, sport diversity, gender diversity, ethnic diversity in this group of 25 plus athletes that are helping, teaming up with Degree to talk about breaking limits and their journey. Clear Cover is really an underdog mentality insurance company. And what they're doing is they want to sponsor the underdogs. They want to sponsor walk-ons, right? So they have an applicant process where if you share your story and it resonates with the founder of Clear Cover, which is a big, fast-growing insurance company, who was a walk-on, in college, then you'll be selected to be a Clear Cover underdog athlete and, featured in commercials and promotions online. Like, that's pretty exciting. So all of these things kind of lead to national advertisers and activating in a creative way that fans will see. You'll see these things and it'll start to become part of sports. And those student athletes on the other side of this are, for the first time ever able to benefit. It's all exciting.
Now, one of the things that Opendorse does, correct me if I'm wrong, like, you'll work with the athlete down to the level of, we'll help you script your post, your tweet or your Instagram post. Because there's a lot of students that say, well, okay, I have a deal with Velveeta, but what does that mean? What do I have to post on social? What do I have to link to? Is there video or pictures I have to include? Like, what does this mean? Opendorse is helping from A to Z with all of those things, helping the athlete secure the deal, helping with the post. Yep. Maybe you can explain that a little bit, because it's a pretty, I don't know anyone else working with the athletes to that level.
Yeah, it is. We are like a personal assistant in their pocket. I mean, our technology is built to keep athletes saying the right things, right place, right time. And now with NIL, we introduced even offline activities like appearances and autographs and speeches and things like that. And so what Opendorse does is, imagine everyone listening to this is a professional, right? And I imagine that at some point you've been asked to appear somewhere at a certain place and time, maybe give a speech, go on stage, introduce somebody, stay on stage in a panel. And in those moments, you're always checking your phone, like, okay, what time does this start? Or somebody's reminding you, hey, remember, we go on stage in 10 minutes. Or you maybe have to record something for some reason, and you keep talking to the person that's helping script it out for you. I mean, professionals still need reminders of where to be, what to say, how to do it. And imagine you go back and you're 18 years old, you're a student athlete that it's your first time ever working with a business, and you go and ask your school for help, and they're like, hey, we cannot help you. This is our policy doesn't allow it, the NCAA doesn't allow it, the state law doesn't allow it. So you are on your own. You're 18 years old. How and who's looking out for you? Okay. So The answer is Opendorse. So your pocket buzzes, it pulls out an app and it says, Velveeta would like to have you do this thing at this date, this time, and this is how much you'll get paid. Yes or no? They say yes, and then Opendorse then says, okay, at the date and time that you're supposed to record the video, you get a reminder. Hey, did you complete this activity? Oh, yeah. Okay, so now I have the script right here. I got to record it, submit it, and then Velveeta approves it. Then you get dollars straight into your bank account like Venmo. We even do tax prep for these athletes. I mean, it is sit there to remind them, hey, do these things because you said you would, right? So 99% of student athletes won't have an agent, but 100% of them will have an app that's looking out for them. That app is Opendorse. And it's fun to see that vision come to life. It's much more real in the college space than it ever was in the pro space, but it's all part of a foundational approach to helping athletes make the most of it.
Well, and just so people understand, Opendorse does work with thousands of pro athletes as well. NFL,
Right.
NBA, Major League Baseball, you've got deals with all the players associations and the main sports. So it's not like you guys just sprouted up when NIL sprouted up. You've been working with pro athletes for years. And now with the NIL, college athletes are a big part of the mix because that wasn't allowed before, right?
And Brian, yeah, and Brian, that's what it is. We say a lot with our college partners and athletic departments is NIL is new. I mean, there's COVID going on, there's NIL
Right.
going on, there's conference realignment going. I mean, their hair's on fire. And I walk in, I say, hey, name, image, and likeness monetization is new to college sports. It's not new to sports, okay?
Right.
Like this is a century-old industry that in the pro space, it's just there's a lot less athletes. They all have an agent manager. They're professionals. Like there's a whole bubble around every athlete. Here's a little different, but we've been helping the pro space for the last decade. You know, so for those listeners, if you're scrolling through your social media feed and you see your favorite NFL player talking about Bud Light or Verizon or EA Sports or Pepsi, Opendorse is the tool that reminds that pro athlete, hey, it's time to post about Pepsi. It's time to post about Verizon. It's time to thank Bud Light for their support. So we've been providing the technology to the pro space for a decade, and now it's just translating into the college space where, again, most of these athletes don't have agent representation. So Opendorse serves as that application that provides a lot of the same reminders and support that a traditional talent agent would at the pro level.
I would say college sports has the ability to have a seedy underbelly more so than pro sports. Have you seen that side of things? Have you seen the seedy underbelly in the last 3 months? You don't have to like name names or anything like that, but I'm imagining there's probably some shady people coming out of the woodwork, and that's why a company like Opendorse can really help say, look, we'll guide you the right way. We've been doing this. We have professionals, and don't go deal with the shady person on campus who's, trying to steer you the wrong way.
Yeah, certainly. I think that there is in any industry, there's always in any big change, there's going to be early, dirty, like let's figure it out type of stuff, and some of it's with good intentions. Like ultimately, we want to move towards a better world. Other ones are bad intentions from the start. So those things are certainly easier to identify, but it's unfortunate that with all athletes, again, Brian, you built your whole business and your life and your career like in this industry. You know that the first time that you meet that superstar, right, and you see him in person, and you shake their hand, and you're like, oh, this is a kid. I mean, this is a kid. This is somebody
Right.
that has been groomed. They're 25 years old. Maybe they're on their second contract, but they're still 25 years old.
Yeah.
But thank goodness there's people around them that are trying to like, hey, here's how to block and tackle, the PR side, the agent side.
I mean, look at Giannis, right? Like he's so young and he's like a superstar. And, I just loved it. Like after they won the NBA finals, he goes drive through somewhere and, order like that went viral. That was a moment like you talked about earlier where he just won the NBA finals, but now he's showing you the human side. He's going drive through like all of us have at his favorite fast food place. There was a moment captured and it went viral and got hundreds of thousands of views. So there's where the magic is. But like you said, these are young people. And especially now that this is on the college level, these are 18, 19-year-olds. I have a 16-year-old, almost 17-year-old daughter. And if you threw her into this environment, there's going to be questions. I don't care how savvy you are as a teenager. This is a new environment. So
Right.
it's different.
Yeah. You hope that there, because of there could be that predatory behavior by an agent or rep that like is not really in the best intention of the athletes, and the athletes don't know better. And there's so many on a college campus. Like there's more college student athletes on a college campus than there are NBA players, right? And like that's a hard thing for people to fathom, that the NBPA employs 100+ people to take care of the 450+ athletes. There might be one person on a college campus that's now thinking about NIL. It's not even their job. So how do you provide an environment? And that's where, Opendorse, we can't block and tackle every problem, but I can tell you that if an athlete and the person that's supporting them is using our technology, it is a safe, secure, compliant, proven place to do business, right? And that is important because I would liken it to when it comes to tax season. It's pretty easy, and they're not a sponsor for this podcast, but if you're using TurboTax, like you probably feel better about it because like that's who they've built the whole thing. They've thought of it all. Versus maybe the guy down the street that say, "Hey, I'll get you a sweet deal. I'll do your taxes." You're like, is this going to get to the right place? Am I getting surprised? Like, you don't want that feeling. Right now in NIL, student athletes have to start to maybe see one or two, or schools have to see one or two things go wrong before they realize that, okay, it's good to use a proven method to do this compliantly.
Yeah. I mean, some things you just want to rest your head on the pillow at night and sleep well and know that it's being taken care of the right way. And, I've known Blake for a long time, and I can tell you that Blake and his team do an amazing job with the pros, now the college athletes. You saw this before most people saw it. We'll end with this, the growth of Opendorse. We just talked about how these athletic departments are staffed, how the players associations are staffed. You started off as a small operation. I'm imagining that you guys are growing because this industry is growing and the opportunity is growing for you.
On January 1st of 2021, so the start of the year, we had 30 full-time employees. Today we have 80 full-time employees.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You've more than doubled.
More than doubled. But great people that believe in the vision, understand where we're going and why we're doing this. I think that's really important when we bring on new team members, and because this isn't a see it opportunity, just dive right in and try and take advantage of it. I mean, this is something that we've been trying to build towards for a long time, and people see that and they want to be a part of it. That's exciting. And a lot of technology, products and engineering team members that are helping ensure that we are providing the best product to the market and helping as many athletes as humanly possible. And this is, again, with thousands of athletes signing up for Opendorse every week, we want to make sure that they have exactly what they need to make the most of whatever time they have. And that's just kind of goes back to exactly why we started it. So big growth, big opportunities in the market. It's still maturing, right? But we look to be the leader. I mean, this is the place. If you think NIL, we want you to think Opendorse. It's in Brian, from a PR perspective, you've seen us kind of go and grow across these different spectrums, but we've always kept that athlete in the center. So NIL is becoming itself the industry. That's a name that's kind of just been coined. We want you to think Opendorse when you hear NIL. When you think Opendorse, want you to think athletes too, right? This is built for them. So we're here to help them. If you want to work with athletes, do something to improve your athletes at a sports organization, like Opendorse is a technology provider that can help you out.
We've got a lot of athletic department employees, coaches who listen to this podcast. If someone's listening to this and they go, "Oh my God, I need Blake to come speak to my student athletes, come to my campus, educate us, help us," what's the best way for people to do that?
Yeah, so Opendorse.com, OPENDORSE, Opendorse.com, or Blake_Lawrence on Twitter. You can follow me, shoot me a note. And we're also, just as student athletes are signing up at a rapid pace. I mean, it's a handful of college partners every week are signing on to bring Opendorse to their campus. And that's exciting. You know, those are things that we want. And so, yeah, hit us up. We're here to help. And um, Brian, there's one thing I wrote down. I know we're kind of in the final stage. There's one thing I wrote down I want to share with you, because
Yeah.
it goes back to knowing what you do when you're working with athletes and advising them and coaching them. And we talked a lot about the build, right? And I want to end on this, like the build up of that 0 to 1,000, like having an audience that matters and follows you, and it's going to get you opportunities. But when you get that opportunity, it's really like how you handle that brand relationship is going to lead to the next one, right? And or it's going to lead to you never getting one again. And
Right.
so there's a student athlete. His name's Chase Griffin. He's a quarterback at UCLA, and he's cleaning up. I mean, this is a guy that we wouldn't have predicted, but the very first deal, he did a deal with Degree, and was part of that team. And then Clear Cover, once they saw how effectively he promoted Degree, they said, well, we want that guy.
Yeah.
You know, and then Shell, the gasoline company,
Yeah.
once they saw what he did with Clear Cover, said, oh, we want that guy. And it's so interesting that, you know, if you get the first opportunity, that's the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
But if you succeed with that first opportunity, then the doors are open. And I think I wanted to use Chase as an example of somebody that isn't the starting quarterback, but he's got a story. And when brands engage him, he succeeds. And I think that's a success story for anyone in PR, anyone in sports, is that you know, when athletes lean into these things, they get the most out of them. So that's really the key to success in NIL.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, because, you know, one of the things I say to the athletes all the time, and I just spoke to a bunch of college students this week virtually, and, you know, I say, it sounds really easy. Just do what you say you're going to do. Deliver on what you say you're going to do. So many people in this world, whether they're college students or pros, do not follow through on what they promise. And
Right.
You make a great point, because, you know, I've worked with a lot of athletes, and, you know, they love getting the money for the appearance, and they love the notoriety. But then when they have to deliver the goods and show up to film the commercial or post the, you know, tweet or Instagram post, like, there's hemming and hawing about it.
Right.
And if you're someone who is cooperative, you're going to get a lot more deals, just because you're easy to work with, and you deliver the goods, and you do what you say you were going to do. And again, it sounds like a low bar, but there's a lot of people that don't do what they say they're going to do. I could do a whole podcast on that, but you make up a great point, because here's this quarterback, like you said, he's not even the starting quarterback, but because he's cooperative, he's engaging, he's easy to work with, he does what he says he's going to do, other companies take notice and they go, I want to work with that guy.
Yep. Everyone's looking to minimize the risk, right? And if you have the ability to put it on film, I mean, this is every athlete understands, like, you're going to get that next contract, next opportunity if you put it on film, right? And if you play the game right. And that is no difference when it comes to what you're doing off the field. If you show up, deliver, put it on film, then that's going to help you get that next opportunity. So maybe that is the next podcast and recording is talking about.
I'll tell you, I'm going to give a quick plug. Coming up on Sports PR Summit online on September 29th at 4 p.m. Eastern, Rex Chapman is going to join Rick Bucher. And if I was to pick one person in the world who has used social media to change the narrative about themselves and to bring good to the world, it would be Rex Chapman. I mean, Rex had an opioid addiction. You know, a lot of people that know Rex Chapman today don't even know him as an NBA player. Like, they're young people. They're like, oh, that guy played in the NBA. But he's brilliant on social media, both with sharing his own content and sharing content of others, and just being like this kind of hub of sharing great, amazing content that makes people feel pretty good. And look at the opportunities that have come to him now. He's doing a podcast, and all these companies want to work with him. And, you know, again, several years ago, he was down and out. He was using opioids. And so I look at Rex as a shining example of, if you use social media the right way and you're authentic, this is what can happen.
Love it. I'll be tuning in. I think Rex is great, and he's an example of what else, right? I mean, like every former basketball player can talk about basketball, but what else? And I think he's found that what else, and he inspires people through that, and it's going to be a great time. So,
Last
Brian,
question.
appreciate you, man.
Yeah, if I'm a brand and I'm looking to work with athletes, I
Yeah.
can also come directly to Opendorse, right?
Yeah, opendorse.com. It's free. You can create an account, log in, browse, build, book, and then endorsement deal, NIL deal with 60,000 athletes around the world, from the biggest name athletes in pro sports to student athletes at your alma mater. So this is where you go to support athletes directly and get support from athletes directly. And that's an exciting place to be for us. So yeah, opendorse.com, sign up. If you want, you can go self-serve and just go wild, right? A lot of these big brands, their first time doing a deal, they'll do our full service package where our team helps walk you through and say, hey, here's how to find the right athletes, here's the type of pitch you need to do, and then you are off to the races. So we're just here as a technology partner to bring two parties together that we think ultimately deserve to be together, and great value comes when you make athletes more accessible to the people that support them.
Blake Lawrence, co-founder, CEO of Opendorse. Congratulations on all your success. And thanks for joining us on Sports Business Radio.
Brian, always good. Thank you.